I'm a food addict in crisis. This week's Zippi Live is going to be a very personal one because I am in the midst, like really the most acute phase of a crisis, a health crisis in my family, which I will not go into detail in order to preserve the privacy of my family members. But I want to share my experience as a food addict in recovery and in the most acute phase of a huge health crisis that is taking all my time, energy. My whole life is on hold in order to deal with this crisis. But on the other hand, I also know that if I start using food now as a drug to take the edge off in this crisis, not only will I be able to deal with this, so like I won't be able to deal with this crisis properly. It also means that I won't be there for my family members who need me right now. The family member who's having the health crisis, my other family members who I need their cooperation and they need mine in order to deal with everything that's going on right now, or all the outside institutions and bureaucracies that I need to deal with during this crisis. So if I want to be there, the most efficient, good, proper, present way during this acute phase of the crisis, I have to be clean with my food. Because if I start falling back to my drug foods, right? Like things with sugar and flour and start using food like a drug, then I am not going to be at my best for anyone. And that is just the worst thing I could do for this acute phase. Now, because I understand that on a very internal level, the truth is that during the acute phase, it's not that hard for me, at least not now. But there is like a certain, first of all, I use a 12-step program for my own personal recovery. I have a sponsor. I called her. I told her about the crisis, and I committed to her not to use food not to go over those red lines that I have, which means that I'm absolutely using food like a drug, right? Not touching anything with sugar and flour. For me, nuts, for example, is such a huge personal trigger. And I actually only recently started completely abstaining from all nuts. And I finally got to a place where I had peace, which had been a long time. I was trying to sort of eat nuts in a limited way and had no peace around it. And it was not a good experiment. And since I've been abstaining from them, it's been really good. So I recommitted to abstain eating from nuts, because if I start eating nuts, I know where it's going to begin. I don't know where it's going to end. And then I'm going to start thinking about almonds instead of thinking about how I help this family member, or how, being present at that call that I'm making. Instead, it's like, oh, when I finish this call, I'm going to go have some nuts. So I really recommitted myself to not going over those red lines that are personal triggers. On the other hand, I know that at a time like this, I need to be with myself a little softer and more lenient about the things that are not those red lines. I'll give you an example. For example, how many times I eat a day. Usually my food plan is I have between 2 to 3 meals a day, not more than that. But now, my whole schedule is totally off. I have no idea. There's so many unknown things. I'm running from here to there. So if I have to eat, eat on the run, or have an unplanned meal or snack or whatever, I don't make a big deal out of that. It's, if I'm going to be too strict at a time like this, it's going to break me. And that's not what I need. I need to be able, I always tell my clients, the GPS program is a program to stay in food addiction recovery all the time. It doesn't matter when things are fantastic, when there's a big celebration, when you're going on vacation and when you are in your routine, out of your routine, and also in a time of crisis. These are the guidelines that guide me and my clients. I teach them that any time of life, also during a crisis. So the second thing is to be a little more lenient in those places where I know I can be more lenient, right? And I can sort of make those compromises in food without it meaning that I slide back into a recovery. Because I know, and this is my own personal thing, if I'm too strict with myself, then it just becomes too hard. And then I'm just making things more difficult for me at a very difficult time anyway. So I do try to make allowances where I know, from, and again, this is a very tricky thing because my addict brain is going to say, oh, you can make allowances if you need something to take the edge off. There's some popcorn there. It's not sugar. It's not flour. And that's my addict brain going on, right? Or there's some nuts there. Maybe just now compromise and have some because it's a healthy snack, but not for me because I'm addicted to nuts. It's a personal trigger for me. So I have to remember who's talking here, right? Is it my addicted brain talking, or is it really my conscious recovery mind, right? Me, Zippi, the real Zippi who wants to be there at her best and is saying it's okay to compromise here. So it's very important to listen to who's talking in my head. And the last thing is that I'm as being very aware of the day after and the day after the day after. For many people, and for me, I know, when I'm at the acute phase of a crisis, it's not that hard for me to stay clean with my food. It's like, I'm so busy and things, I don't have that many cravings. I even my appetite goes down. But what happens is that once the acute phase is over and it's, you can sort of take a breath and, and then the defenses go down. Because it's like this, there's this relaxation, and then the defenses can go down to these, to stimulation and cravings and urges. And I know for me, typically, the urges and the cravings, the crap hits the fan after the acute phase of the crisis is over, when it's sort of things are starting to get back together again. And that's when I have to be super vigilant and super careful. And that is when I have to really take all the tools and strategies that I use and use them even more, whether it's my support system or using tools like writing, making sure that I have the food I need around me, right? And lowering the stimulations as much as I can towards addictive eating, like maybe not going to restaurants then, or, going into bakeries and things like that. And just making sure that I am eating properly and using the tools that I need, right? And really, and also committing to my sponsor, to myself, writing, calling people and sharing and making sure that I have what I need. That's the time when I know that I have to be super, super vigilant. That's the time when many times cravings and urges can come up. And so I have to be ready for that and aware of that's after the acute phase. So this is how, from my personal experience, how a food addict deals with crisis in life. And if this has helped you, well, I invite you to reach out. I may not be available for the next week or two, but please reach out. I will get back to you if you'd like to have any comments. And anybody who is in food recovery and is listening to this video, please share your how you deal or how you have dealt in the past with crises and still stayed in food recovery. So thank you guys. And just remember, everyone, to be soft on yourselves. And that's what I remember too, to be soft on myself. Have a wonderful day, and we should all have happy times.